Hello and welcome back to the George's Live podcast. I am your host, Travis Smith. Super special episode for you guys today, but before we get to that, you can go online to georgeslive.com to see what shows are coming up here at George's Majestic Lounge. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at George's Majestic Lounge, on Twitter at George's Majestic, and be sure to rate and subscribe to the podcast. Today we had a very special interview with Harold here at George's Majestic and with Steve Kimock. And we talked to him about his shows coming up here on October 4th, 5th, and 6th. And if you want tickets, you can go online to georgeslive.com. It's going to be 3 special nights with a reunion of Mountain of Venus on October 4th and 5th. Tickets are $25 in advance or $30 at the door. If you want to get a hotel here in town and make it to all 3 shows, that's October 4th, 5th, and 6th. And let's take you to that interview. We kind of had a little short talk with Harold before we get into it about Steve Kimock, and after that we'll take you straight to that interview. Thank you for listening to the George's Live podcast. I am your host, Travis Smith, and here's the interview. I am here on the George's Live podcast with Harold. We're going to talk for a second about who Steve Kimock is, his footprint on music, and his history here in Fayetteville before we have him come on the podcast.
He's got quite a history here. It goes back almost 25 years, the first time that he played Fayetteville, played the stage at Chester's with the band Zero. Mm-hmm. And for the years since that time, I should know an exact number of shows, but I don't. We've tried to find out that number. It looks like around 45 nights of music he shared with Fayetteville over the last 24 and a half years. And that's been a variety of bands that he's come here with. And
Zero was his initial first band?
Zero was the first band. It's a funny story. Myself and a friend, Ira, went to San Francisco on the mission that we needed to have Zero come play Fayetteville. At that time, there was no touring bands regularly coming through town. People now wouldn't know, probably have a hard time wrapping their mind around that. But there was a concert maybe once or twice a year at the university, and maybe a club here or there had a blues band or a country band that came through. But there was no regular touring bands, and there was none of that West Coast psychedelic sound being represented here. So we went out and
grabbed it and brought it here.
Met the band, and through some initial doubt on their part, convinced them to fly to Fayetteville. And, you know, it's funny that everything changes, but everything stays the same. Steve is still flying to Fayetteville. This is not part of a tour. The show's coming up. And the initial shows weren't part of a tour. It was bring the band to Fayetteville. And I think what happened that bonded Fayetteville during those initial runs of shows was the word was out. People were hungry to see what it was. They didn't necessarily know the band, but the mixture of the crowd was half out-of-state people that came in that didn't know exactly what was going on, and the other half was local people. And everybody got along wonderfully. You couldn't tell the difference who was a local, who wasn't, and the music was great, and we had 2 sold-out nights, as I remember it, of Zero.
When was this? Around what time frame?
This was 95.
95?
And early 95. And he continued coming here with Zero for the next few years. And we had numerous shows. Again, I don't know how many. And then it morphed into KVHW, was his next project. Bobby Vega from Zero stayed on. Ray White of Frank Zappa came on board. And Alan Hurt's drummer. That morphed in after a few years, and again, we're accumulating those 45 shows. Steve's coming and going into town, morphed into the Steve Kimock Band, which he had the great Rodney Holmes on drums with him. We had several runs of Steve Kimock Band shows, and we also had Crazy Engine with Steve Kimock and Merle Saunders. And interspaced in between all these things was a running project called Steve Kimock and Friends, which brings us to what we have this time. Mm-hmm. And it's just been a rotating cast of incredible, usually Bay Area musicians that Steve has brought to Fayetteville. And it continues to be the out-of-state people continue to support the shows. Right now, we've sold to 15 states for these upcoming shows. Tickets that have been ordered have gone from Oregon on the West Coast to Maine on the East Coast, Wisconsin North to Texas South. So
it's going to be a special weekend, and also there's the two nights before we have Mountain of Venus.
Yes,
on there as well.
Mountain of Venus made quite a name for themselves in this area. They were a touring band in the early 2000s, and originally from Massachusetts. They relocated to Colorado. They played again several runs of shows at Chester's, and after Colorado, most of the band, in fact all the band, moved to Fayetteville. And now some of the band live here, some of the band are spaced out around the country, but this is their 20th anniversary of forming. They no longer play together regular, but on Friday and Saturday, October 4th and 5th, we have the original Mountain of Venus lineup, which includes their guitar player from San Francisco that's flying in, Mike Pascal. Mike's an interesting character, and he also owns an amp company and sound company out there, and called Fat Jimmy.
Oh, nice.
And he's kind of gone off in that direction, and it'll be fun seeing him.
It's crazy that you say there weren't that many touring bands coming through here around then.
There was not.
Especially considering this particular genre and of music, of like kind of the jam scene and stuff like that, is so hot and well loved around here.
It is, but it really, to a large degree, it was created with Steve's bands. The mid 1990s. 2000, early 2000s is really when that music bonded with a lot of people and got a large following in this area. And not that they didn't have a following before, but the bands just didn't play here, which again goes back to bringing Zero here for the first time. It was I knew there was a reason. I knew it would work.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you said you had to have some convincing to
have
them come out to Arkansas?
Oh, God, yeah. It was during a gig out there. I don't remember what venue in San Francisco, but I do remember Greg Anton, the drummer, was a little bit surly about Arkansas. Like, why shouldn't we come to Arkansas? And, if you're in a band, you're always getting crazy ideas.
Yeah.
If you're in music, you're always getting somebody that comes up to you and they've got what you need to do. And I'm sure you're this way to a degree, too. I've just got the automatic turn off on where it's like, yeah, all right. My cousin's got a blues band over in Jonesboro, and they need to come over here. And, it's things that you're not necessarily going after. So I'm sure they looked at a couple of guys from Arkansas that looking at flying a fairly large San Francisco band to Arkansas just to play gigs in a club. Probably
It's a stretch.
Yeah, it's a stretch.
Cool. Well, let's get into this interview before this train comes rolling. We hear the George's train coming along. So, all right, I am here with Harold and with Steve Kimock here on the George's Live podcast. Steve, thank you for coming on, brother.
Thank you, Travis.
And I'm also here with Harold, who I know you guys have had a lot of history here in Northwest Arkansas and in Fayetteville and playing shows, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But you'll be here at the 1st of October for a 3-night run on October 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we're definitely looking forward to having you back for that.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait.
So, and we also have Mountain of Venus that's going to be opening the first 2 shows. So it's going to be a beautiful evening of music here at George's, and we're super stoked to have you back. And nothing else, I'd just kind of love to chat with you about your career and about, your approach to how you view music and how you view your career and things like that. And just kind of roll with it if that's cool with you.
Yeah. What's a good place to start for you?
Well, we were talking before you came on, and we were talking about the history. Travis was asking me about the number of years and all that stuff, and I should have done my homework, and I should have an exact number of shows, but I know approximately that you first came here with Zero. It was almost 25 years ago. Yeah. It seems like, Steve, everything changes, but everything stays the same, because on those shows, you flew in for the weekend.
Right.
everything changes. You were on a propeller plane flying into the local Fayetteville airport, as I remember it. I'm getting to the point where I bet you have some memories of this too. But and the crowd when you got here was enthusiastic. As I remember it, Chester's was packed. The crowd was half out-of-state people that knew exactly what they were coming to, and half local people that kind of knew but was new to it. And what was so cool is in this Steve Kimock Fayetteville experiment that we've had running for 25 years is that everybody just blended together, and there was no out-of-state, there was no locals, everybody was here for the music. Well, now here we are, all these about 45 nights of music that you've done in Fayetteville with a number of bands, and now we're heading into to this night, and with a pretty much the players are all kind of known to Fayetteville that you're coming with this time.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
I mean, didn't Reed, when he was a baby, he played with you in the Fayetteville shows? I believe it was in an N-Friend lineup. I don't remember the exact lineup or anything, but...
oh, man. No, man, we've been... my whole family has been Reed Mathis fans.
Yeah.
Since the moment we heard of him, God knows how long ago that was. But yeah, and he's, he's Tulsa, right?
He's Tulsa. Boy. Yeah, he grew up in the neighborhood and kind of cut his teeth on. I remember one time way back, he asked me for recordings of Grateful Dead music because he was getting curious about Grateful Dead music, and that popped in my head the other day. It's funny to think of with everything he's done in his career. Before we skip over this, when you first came to Fayetteville, what did you think? Do you remember flying into Fayetteville with here's a San Francisco band that's been convinced to come to Fayetteville, Arkansas? Do you have memories of that? Did you think we were crazy?
No, I mean it all seemed it all seemed pretty cool. I mean, maybe the craziest part of it, I think, was I know it was one of the. I don't know if it was the very first time, but one of the very first times.
Yeah,
I played at Chester's. We had set up. I guess we had set up, or we said there, or we were about to set up. It was just time for like a little bit of food, and so I went to the restaurant next door with a couple of the guys, and I thought, oh, geez, man, I'm exhausted. I'm gonna be here all day working on this. Yeah. I got to eat something that's not going to kill me. And I asked the waitress, "Can I have a fruit salad?" She says, "Sure. You want bacon on that?" And I said, "Bacon on a fruit salad?" She says, "In Fayetteville, swine's considered a fruit." I was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah. And you better put some of that." You know what I mean?
Did you eat the bacon?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
nobody leaves bacon laying out. That's crazy.
Seriously, no. It was just weird because the part of it that I didn't get when I first showed up was I wasn't hip to the Razorbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I wasn't following it, and then when I stuff started to make sense about the local community when the football. When I became aware of the football thing, that was the hardest part.
Yeah. Well, that kind of sums up Fayetteville.
Yeah, it's like we don't have any pro teams in the whole state, so everybody just rallies right behind the Razorbacks.
That's right.
Yeah, and then where's the pig head on the hat thing?
It's got to be ridiculous to somebody else coming in, calling the hogs and whatnot.
Well, exactly. Yeah, the pig suey thing, I mean, you come from California, you hear that shit, you're like,
see, that's what we're famous for.
I know, that's crazy.
It's like everybody, here's Steve talking about the pig suey thing. It's like, don't.
Well, it's like, what's your first impression when you come to town?
Yeah.
It's like, it's a place like no other, for sure, and for a million reasons, not all of them. necessarily musical.
I think that comes with anytime there's a group of people and somebody comes into town. I think everybody tries to show off the hog call to them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's our hello.
Yeah, it is. It's
Nice.
We'll show them.
Well, I guess jumping ahead from that, dialing ahead 45 shows later, you've moved back to Pennsylvania. You're always, we're so used to saying Bay Area musician, Steve Kimock. Do you have everything in one place now in Pennsylvania, like all your equipment and all? Is this new?
No.
No, it's not all in one place, or it's
it's gotten worse instead of better.
Oh man, does that mean wherever you go, you have equipment, you have guitars?
Now there's two houses. Like the idea was, I had a house and a barn outside of over by Easton, right, and. When we decided that we would, go back to California and try, for schools, kids, kind of thing. That's, what we were thinking.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, that might work, it might not. So we're just we'll rent the house out, we'll keep the barn for the gear and to get our just set up for like the East Coast stuff. When I go to East Coast, I have a barn and I've got drum sets and a Hammond organ, and it's a Rhodes piano and a bass amps, a couple guitar amps. Just everything I need to go take the guys on the road, basically.
Nice.
And so that's still there. But now, because it's the kids in school, walk to school thing, now we're in downtown Bethlehem, bought another house.
Uh-huh.
And so now I'm even farther from my... Now I got stuff here, I got stuff there. There's stuff in California, stuff everywhere.
Oh wow!
But so no, it didn't really get that consolidated. The family overall got consolidated. And although this is kind of extra musical, I think it's very important to let you know that my son John, who is my favorite drummer and probably favorite musician of all time, dude, just had a baby, him and his wife Sarah, right?
Yes.
So I'm now officially a grandfather.
Yes.
Because
Congratulations.
Baby Penny is here. Penelope has arrived.
Right.
To make an honest old man out of me. So
Are all of your children do they all play music?
No. Johnny plays the drums and does so masterfully. The next eldest, Miles, is a screaming guitar player. Great guitar player. He's one of those dudes where there's nothing that I could do that he couldn't immediately do back. Doesn't matter what it is.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He's totally great. But I'm not super, doesn't seem to be super invested in, like gig life, like pursuing it professionally. But he's awesome. And then the little kids, Skylar and Rye, who are actually getting pretty big at this point. It's going to be like 16 and 12 any minute. They haven't really declared yet about the music thing.
Yeah.
They'd rather play, Minecraft or something. Civilization. Some, they'll shoot them up. Rather than play the guitar.
And Johnny, he's played here with you before, and he's also been to town a couple times with other people. And he's, like you said, he's now developed into a powerhouse drummer. And I don't know whose first call, but he's with Mike Gordon from Fish on his band,
yep.
And he's been playing with O'Teal and some of his stuff. And I think there's a few other things. But did you see that coming in, Johnny, Steve? That was going to be this strong?
That's a good question. Like this, see it coming thing is that almost implies like there's some planning or something.
Yeah.
Or that like if I do this, then he'll do that, and then these guys will do this. It's like, it doesn't really work like that. So, the thing with Johnny, like that didn't see it coming was, I wouldn't have seen it coming that my firstborn would, adopt music, as completely as Johnny did. He just embraced it, and we're super, bonded. And I just love the guy so much, and he's a fantastic musician. Really, just amazing. I love working with him. Go ahead.
Yeah, it seems like the vibe between you two. I've watched some of the video that's out since it's been almost 3 years since you've been in Fayetteville, and I've seen some of the latest stuff, and it seems like you guys are just glowing with each other, and to be a father and son, to be blessed being a father and son in that kind of relationship on stage.
Yeah, I see. Like I couldn't possibly have, predicted or orchestrated that, seen that coming.
Right.
That's just a blessing, straight up.
Yeah.
The other portion of the program, would I have predicted that he would be working professionally at the level that he was? I of course I would hope for that.
Yeah.
Or hope that that his music be his own, and that he does it and he owns it. It's not about I didn't want it to have much to do with me. I didn't follow him around when he was a teenager, or like try and get him gigs, or really left him do his own thing, because it just he wouldn't have had a thing if I'd imposed mine. And his thing is so beautiful and so different.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I made the decisions that I did along the way to not try and, like overdo it with direction for him.
Yeah.
Because he really he figured out the right stuff himself.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I'm looking forward to seeing him. It's been a while since Johnny's been here. As long as we're talking about the players, we mentioned Reed Mathis, who is just an incredible creative bass player. We've not mentioned Jeff Kimock. That to me, there's very few people. I've been blessed to know a lot of musicians, but there's very few people that just, I don't know, live and breathe music. I don't know the words to use. He's just makes everybody sound better that he plays with, and seems to be an endless creative well of ideas.
Great.
And a spark plug to the band. Whatever band he's in, he's like the spark plug that can, man, is that how you see it?
Have you met my friend Jeff? Yeah, that's the same guy.
Okay, it's the same guy. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Both of those guys are, Reed and Jeff, pretty much exactly as you described. The only little distinction I would draw is Jeff Kimock is also so normal. He's such a normal, he's such a regular guy that it's almost, it's a weird, it's too weird. He's so normal.
But there's a beauty in that, don't you think?
Oh man, he's just like super, matter of fact, hey, let's go ahead.
Yeah.
Have a beer. It's one of those guys. Have a beer. They talk about golfing, and then, get something to eat, whatever. And like, you would never know hanging out with the guy.
Yeah.
That he's like, as really just high powered as he is, because he's plugged in. That cat's plugged in all the time.
Folks don't realize he's between tours of Dead and Company playing stadiums, and yet he's your keyboard player coming to George's to do these shows and being the normal guy you just described.
Oh yeah, he's just a beautiful beautiful dude. And like I said, like if you hung out with him for a couple minutes, you'd never think. I mean, there's a lot of cats that really, they're just weird enough. The musicians, they're just weird enough that you can't help but go, oh yeah, this is,
yeah.
You know, like what was it? Like Peter O'Toole in My Favorite Year or something like that. They're like that, you know.
Yeah.
But not just.
Your career is, I mean, it's kind of drifted along, and you've you've played with a lot of people. You've played in a lot of different formats.
Right.
We mentioned all those bands earlier. I think it was in the intro that you played here from Zero to KVHW to SKB to Crazy Engine. Do you have a next? Do you see what's coming next, or do you like you moved back to Pennsylvania now? How's that change things? Does that change things?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you know, no. See, the thing about, because we're talking about, you know, talking about music or career, or, you know, when you played at Fayetteville the first time, or, you know,
yeah.
We're talking about, or like knowing people, or here's the kids, or now I'm a grandfather, and baby Penny's here, Penelope's here. You know, all that stuff just represents a direction forward in time. You know? And that's, you know, like it or not, man, that's the only real direction that we have. You know, what we're born into, you know, as people, or, you know, artists, musicians, or, you know, whatever we're doing, we're getting on this, you know, it's like it's like whatever, we're getting on it, but it's like a fucking parking meter or something like that. It runs out, you know, and all you're doing is just kind of running forward in time. The whole thing, music, you know, temporal, you know, the career. You're talking about time. You don't really manage that or direct that. It's like a current. It's a river. You're in it. You're going. You know. And that's it.
How many dates a year are you touring right now? Are you hitting a lot, or do you find yourself winding down with this?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't know that it's. You know, I mean, I don't know that it's important. It's kind of interesting, but I don't look at it like that. And just talking to some guy earlier today, man, writing a book about some musicians around the scene, you know, and I was starting to tell him. I wanted to tell him because he's asking about, you know, just career stuff and being a guitar player. I don't even fancy myself a guitar player. Like, if I looked at myself, if I had like a mental self-image, you know, I can think of who you are, say, oh, I'm Harold, and you see Harold in your head, you know? You ever do that? You can see yourself, Harold? I don't see myself with a guitar.
Yeah.
You know, if I had to, like, have a picture of myself,
yeah,
you know, I don't even know what I am. I don't know if I'm a little kid, or, you know, or if I'm some, you know, some disembodied presence, you know, 3 feet off my left shoulder looking down at me going, that's me. Why am I doing that? I don't know. All I know is that you get moment to moment and day to day and year to year, and you're in that. You do your best with it.
You know, this is kind of tricky ground because words, it's kind of what you were talking about, but it's kind of hard choosing what words a subject you can kind of talk around, but you can't talk directly to it. It's kind of like God or something, but people come to hear you, and I know because I've been out in the audience enough times, they come for those golden moments where the music, no matter what your ensemble is, where the music seems to take off. And you can see it in the crowd. They're either dancing, they've got their eyes closed or something, and big smiles come across their faces. it's ensemble playing, but a lot of it is led by your a string of notes that you come through you. I guess my question is,
that's the idea, and
that's why we do it.
Comes up again in the context of talking about being a guitar player. Because people ask me about being a guitarist because they perceive me this way, that I'm a guitarist, and I make a lot of noise doing it, so it's not wrong that they're seeing that, but I think it's more about the whole, it's more about the whole event, about the energy that's present in the entire room, and then in the ensemble interplay, like if.
Well, I think that was part of my question on it seems like it's the whole thing. It's the crowd. It's you. It's the ensemble. It's somehow you can. What was the saying one time? You can't make magic show up, but you can set the table. It's kind of that kind of deal where if everything's working right, when you're playing though, I mean you're working your craft, you're working what you're good at, what you've spent the bulk of your life in. What's the rewarding moments for you? Do you feel those moments when you're kind of amazed when you're playing and you look up and you think, whoa, are those the moments that make it worthwhile for you?
We were talking about setting the scene for a show. There's so many elements that come into a live performance, the evening and everything down to the lighting and down to setting the stage for a good performance. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. I'd thrown out that phrase that you can't make magic happen, but you can set the table and welcome magic into the room.
Right, yeah.
But there's times that crowd gets off. There's times you feel that in the crowd, you feel that kind of hair raise on your arms, and you look around and people are smiling, and something's worked. Something's happened. Something's turned golden, and it comes. A lot of that flows through you. That's one of the main influence in the room.
Yeah. So that's one way to look at it. Although,
how do you look at it?
I don't entirely agree with it. Having watched it go down like a bunch of times, because that's my, if you missed it before, that's my shtick, really. I'm not so much a guitar player as a guy that just tries to set the stage, so people can relax and be comfortable and, make some music, and let it involve everybody. Like the nature of the gathering, because this is what we're talking about. A bunch of people get together at dark. You put the kids to bed, some food or whatever. You put the kids to bed. Everybody goes down to the place and bangs on a drum or plays a fiddle and dances around and drinks, and the fire leaps up and everybody's happy. And, people have been doing that since there were people.
Yep.
That's probably like the oldest activity. Kind of get around for a little safe time, with your people dance around the fire. So that's always been going on. And so that moment is there. People are always trying to get to it, And in the gathering, even with something like, at George's and you advertise it and you put my name on the thing and everything like that, it's like an excuse maybe for people to get together. But it's about the gathering. Those things are gigs. They're 99% social, and it's it's like the good, it's a good part of church, it's the fellowship. It's the part where people are, glad to see each other and, catch up and hang out with their neighbors and help what they can, like that. It's good, right?
Yeah.
That's what's going on. And I happen to be playing music while that's going on, right? But that's, that has to go on. People need that to be okay.
That must feel pretty special to know that you can go all over the country, though, and be able to walk in and out of these gatherings, though, of people and that energy.
Oh, I love it, and I have huge respect, for the nature of the thing, and I'm humbled by it, honestly, because it's fucking cool. some of these things, man. So many people, and everybody's so happy, and everybody getting together. And it was it's a feature of my my Fayetteville experience, to have played all of those gigs. And I never had it like there was never I never had a single hard time, man, at any one of those gigs with any of those people, any of those band members, all that stuff, all those years. It was just like every one of those gigs was fucking wonderful, and that means that the people, like the area, the whole thing that was going on, like the big picture, has to be pretty cool for that to happen. That don't happen in Baltimore,
Yeah.
Every time I go to Baltimore, you can't even just go out in the parking lot and throw a frisbee. The cops come.
Yeah, I was talking to someone earlier, and we were talking about.
It's 4 a.m. and it's at the hotel. It's not going to put the car on and stuff like that. But still, it should be okay to go out and play frisbee.
I think it's cool that I was talking to someone earlier. We were talking about musical climates in different parts of the country. That you got if you go to certain parts of the country, there'll be certain styles or music culture that have more of an influence. If you go down to Lafayette, it's a big in Zydeco and stuff like that. It's nice to kind of almost take the show on the road, and it kind of brings out the best in each community without relying on the actual culture that's there. And that's kind of what I like about what you're saying here with the community building and stuff like that. A lot of people flying in, happy to see each other that they haven't seen in years, and coming and kind of planning an event around your show.
Yeah.
And
it's
a nice thing to see.
From the aspect of people that put it on, like myself, I've never had a bad experience. And all these shows have there's been just an incredible amount of trust, human trust, to even make these shows happen. When we're talking back to that first show, this was no big music business. Some management company didn't bring zero to Fayetteville. Right. There wasn't billboards on the highways or something. That it was all a real homegrown with a lot of people contributing. There was, the meals that you usually eat when you're here. There's restaurants that are happy to feed you. There's people that every time you come that they would spend money to fly someplace to see you. So hey, let's help bring Steve to Fayetteville. So you've got some airline tickets paid by people. Suddenly, it's all a very homegrown thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I hope everybody realizes that listening to this. This is kind of outside the business world of music. What we're talking about in this weekend, first weekend in October.
It has always been like that.
It's always been like that.
It's
always
family. Hey kids, let's put on a show.
Yeah, it's always been a family deal. It's always been a phone call or two, and we certainly want to give thanks to your wife, Jen, because she's the organizer behind all of this. I think you would agree that if it was just me and you trying to plot this out, we wouldn't have near we're blessed to have her in the picture. Where would you be, huh?
There's like a whole series of jokes like that. What do you call a guitar player without a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Homeless.
I play drums. There's a lot more drum ones than there are guitars.
Oh yeah, what do you call it? What do you call a drummer wearing a suit? The defendant.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So awful.
Well, on your back to us doing this question thing here.
Okay.
On the guitars, you have a lot of guitars. Good God,
Sure.
How many guitars do you have? Are we talking
I don't
20,
know.
50, 100? What?
60 or 70 probably. There's a lot of them.
Well,
there's a lot of them.
I've heard that rumor before, that your houses have been filled with guitars everywhere. When you're coming to Fayetteville, these are fly-in shows. What we were just talking about, there's been very few tours that's come through here pretty much most of those 45 nights. I can think of one or two times you toured through here. One time was with Melvin, but most of those nights you fly in, and that means you can't bring 70 guitars with you. How do you make the guitar cut? Is it hard? Like who gets to go to Fayetteville, and who gets that extra?
Well, the L7's going because my big hollow body Gibson comes because
you've been playing that a lot,
because it's an actual guitar. I can sit and play it, and it sounds like a guitar. Otherwise, you just got like a plank. I'll bring the Explorer. Got to bring the Explorer.
Yep.
So that's two, right? And then I'll put the lap steel in a case and send it under the plane, and maybe I'll send something else under the plane. Although I don't have a lot of guitars I like to put under the plane. Yeah. But then I got a double bag, and I could put, Super Ozark or a Strat in there, or a Cripe and a Les Paul, or any two solid bodies, and there I am with the best of the planks, the best of the boxes with the Hawaiian guitar and everything. There's 5 guitars. I can get that together.
Guitars have gotten kind of weird on checked bags, so I imagine it's that way on guitars. I imagine they've gotten a little bit more. In this case, I know there's a seat for you, and there's a seat and a ticket for your guitars. So you just strap those guitars in the seat?
No.
What do you do?
I just stick them overhead.
Ah.
The deal with the guitars these days is they are you're allowed to have a guitar as your overhead bag, right? And then so that's your bag, and you got one little bag you can put under the seat. So if you buy 2 seats, then you should have those 2 spaces. And the guitars that I bring, they nest. So I put one up in the thing, and then I spoon the other one in next to it. On those planes that fall out of the sky that we used to take all the time, United, the ones that got recalled, the Max 7, whatever it was, 67 or 20, so whatever it was, the one that falls down. They had the great overheads, and I could put the L7, the double bag, with 2 solid bodies, and the Explorer in one overhead, and then still have the empty seat next to me. But I got the empty seat in case there's a problem with the overhead. So it all works out. But it's it's mostly just having that empty seat next to you. It's like hillbilly first class.
You mentioned Explorer. For people that don't know, that's kind of the odd-shaped guitar that I always see you with through the years. And it looks like something that would be on the Jetsons, like if Daughter Judy or his boy Elroy had a guitar, they'd have something like that. That design and the Flying V were both responses from Gibson, too little, too late, to the modernity of the Stratocaster when it came out. Because when Fender Stratocaster came out, that meant it was like pretty revolutionary kind of space age. Ooh, that's some fancy new things. So Gibson tried to do something fancy too, and came up with the Explorer. Didn't the Explorer? It was built in New York City or something, and
mine was.
Okay, that was the original. Would you explain that just a little bit for folks that don't know? I don't know, but I've read a little bit about it. Go ahead. You've got several of the originals. Is that correct?
It's the wrong way to look at it. Back in the 50s.
Yeah.
When Gibson said, "Oh, we need something that doesn't look like it was designed in 1850," and came out with the Explorer and the thing, those body styles. Then the Explorer body style. There was a place in New York at the tail end of the 60s, beginning of the 70s, on 48th Street Music, there where all the music stores were. Was it upstairs from well, I can't even remember what was downstairs. It was Rudy's or, We Buy Guitars or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But upstairs there's a place called the Guitar Lab.
Right,
And,
Guitar Lab. Yeah, I heard that.
And the Guitar Lab was Charles LeBou. He was the luthier, and Larry DeMarcio was doing the electronics before he started the aftermarket pickup thing. And LeBou made approximately 4. It's kind of hard to tell right now. And I thought there could be no more than 4, but I have a Guitar Lab of an Alex Axe Explorer as well, which was, part of that same family of stuff. Alex guitars supposed to be like production LeBou instruments, like he was getting together and make a bunch of guitars. But anyway, yeah, I have 2 of the Guitar Lab instruments that appear to have been cut from the same piece of wood.
Oh wow!
And the Alex actually had there's a knot in the same place on both guitars, like it was one. It was like one slab of rosewood, and they cut it in half, and the knot went through it in the same place.
You can tell from the grain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wish I could bring them all. I can't.
Yeah, I wish you could too.
But I have, I have my favorite one that I've been playing all my life. So.
Okay, so the one I see is your favorite. What the one Explorer is your?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's the one, man. That is like with all these instruments.
Does anybody know where the other? Do you know where the other Explorers are? You mentioned there's 4, possibly more.
I think Gibson might have one. I think they had one in Nashville when it flooded. Okay. They might have lost it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't bother calling up companies that big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's silly. I was corresponding with Fender not long ago because they sent me a cease and desist for a refrigerator magnet of the Stratocaster.
Oh my goodness!
There's one in my refrigerator right now, man. It's a picture of my Stratocaster with the lipstick tubes and a tape holding it together and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's one of the Cripe, and there's one of there's one of Jerry's guitars, and there's one of anyway. I got a bunch of these refrigerator magnets.
Oh, that's
I made a box of refrigerator magnets, man, and somebody saw them and told Fender that I had a picture of their guitar that I was selling, and they were like, "Oh man, you can't do that."
Yeah.
And I think I went back and forth with them a couple of times, much to Jen's dismay, where I just took the piss out of them. I was like, "No, I think you guys should give me guitars. It shouldn't be like this thing where I'm playing the Stratocaster all my life. I'm your best friend.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of guitars, and maybe I'll stop selling. And then." What about these magnets, man? It cost me $300 to make this.
Uh-huh.
And, it's really $300 to make this box of magnets, and I've sold 4 of them. You want to buy these off of me?
Yeah.
Or what? I mean, you already spent more money on lawyers to send me this letter.
Yeah.
Than, it's like 10 times what I could make if I sold these things.
Yeah.
And I'm out the money, and you're out the money. What the hell is wrong with you people? I love your stuff. Send me a guitar.
Yeah.
I'm all about the Fender Stratocaster.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, but what do you do? Yeah, that's the big music stuff, as opposed to the little music stuff, which LeBou was. So the Explorer was made by a dude who was a mighty dude, an awesome guy. He's passed away. Quite decades ago, but he didn't even use power tools, man. He made everything by hand. He's just like so into the craft of it. Such an eye. I have one of his basses as well, beautiful fretless bass. And we did a gig, me and Alfonso. Alfonso was playing LeBou's guitars back in Weather Report when he was doing that stuff, and we played a gig. We played a gig with my band where we both had our LeBou's, the Fillmore, I think, in San Francisco. So it was fun. Anyway, I love those instruments, and I love that dude, Charles and Pooh, great movie, great man.
Cool.
Well, awesome, man. You got this show coming up in October. We're definitely looking forward to it. And I really appreciate you coming on the George's Live podcast with us, Steve.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank Mountain of Venus for being on the show. Steve, you go back a ways with Mountain of Venus, and I think you've played several shows with them. I remember one time.
Oh yeah, no, we played around in the festivals in a T-shirt that they made. The misspelled T-shirt. Remember that one, Mountain of Venus?
Oh my God! I do remember that now. Oh, and it was a great joke at the time. It was a collector's item.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That is great. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I remember there was one time that you flew into Fayetteville when Dave Giswaldo was so sick fighting cancer at the time, and I think you set in with them, maybe something like that. So it's kind of neat that we do these shows and that it all comes around. It's like I was saying, everything changes and everything's the same, and I'm glad that Mountain of Venus has the original lineup and with Mike Pascal on guitar, who has made his own name in hot rodding amps and.
He actually has a company that makes amplifiers and
Fat Jimmy, I believe it is, correct?
Fat Jimmy, I have one myself.
Ah,
and Weir uses them, and all kinds of people use them. He's actually getting pretty popular. He knows his stuff. He's a super dude, great player, great dude. Well, I can't wait.
Wonderful. That's the 4th and 5th that Mountain of Venus is opening. On the 6th, Sunday is an early show. That with all SKF, and on these shows, it'll be a set of Mountain of Venus. It'll follow with 2 sets of Steve Kimock and friends with various guests sitting in. Saturday is your birthday. I should probably let people know.
Wow.
For whatever reason, and you've been here several birthdays before. It's fallen that way, so we're glad to celebrate the birthday with you, and we're glad.
Thank you, man. I hope I'm not quite in wavy gravy territory yet, but Wavy just sent me a thing, man. He says he wants to do a zero gig, and he says it's only 17 more birthdays till he's 100, so time is of the essence.
Oh my. Yeah, Wavy's one of those guys that just keep on going. He just keeps ticking. It's
incredible, man. Literally, man. 17 more years, man. The guy's gonna be 100 years old. I hope I'm still there playing his parties.
Oh, that's great. Well, we got 3 nights of the good part of church coming up, and I'm going to be looking very forward to it. And I would just like in the beginning, we should thank you and Margie at Chester's for originally buying into this idea and letting us do this good part of church at their club, and certainly a lot of history there, and it has continued with George's, and I have to thank Brian Crown and Day Crown, the owner of George's, because without them to come up with these crazy ideas and these multi-night things wouldn't happen, and we'd be kicked out on the streets. So much thanks to Brian and Day Crown for doing this. Steve,
I love it.
That wraps it up from my end.
Yeah, big thanks to everybody all around.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you, Steve. We'll definitely see you at the show, and I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on the podcast, brother.
My pleasure.
Okay, love you, Steve.
Thanks. That was Harold and Steve Kimock on the George's Live podcast. Thank you guys for listening. You can go online to georgeslive.com to see what shows are coming up, get tickets for Steve's show, and all that jazz. You can go to Instagram.com or Instagram and go to George's Live or George's Majestic Lounge. Jeez, can't talk. And you can go on to Twitter to George's Majestic, and be sure to review, rate, and subscribe to the podcast, and tell your friends. And we'll see you guys next week.